Ladies and gentlemen, chapter 5 questions. So in the last chapter, we checked out the rise of the HUAC hearings. We saw the Hollywood 10 not cooperate, right? John Howard Lawson basically sabotages his own career to stand up for the things America is supposed to stand up for. And then we see the rise of the tyrant Senator Joseph McCarthy. Now, it is 1953, beginning with the Chapter 5 questions. Stalin is dead and Truman is out, right? He gets democratically ousted via the ballot, and we have two new leaders enter into the fray of the Cold War. In the Soviet Union, we see Nikita Khrushchev take the leadership, and then in America, we see Dwight D. Eisenhower become the man, right? The president, the guy in the big seat. Now, very quickly, guys, one thing I want you to understand about the Cold War is tensions during the Cold War are like a good roller coaster that go up and down and up and down and up and down again, right? Kind of get that sick feeling in your stomach and then that relief and then that sick feeling again and then that relief, right? That's kind of the Cold War until the gravest Cold War confrontation that we see in 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis. So the Cuban Missile Crisis is where we see tensions go all the way up, right? But we'll get to there. We'll get to there. Now, with tensions going up and down, up and down, up and down, when Eisenhower comes to the leadership of the country of America, right, to the United States, he wants to sort of flex a little bit on them. Flex a little bit on them haters, and he wants to flex on the Soviet Union. And what he does is he adopts two new policies, one called the New Look Defense and one known as massive retaliation. So the New Look Defense policy of President Eisenhower, it's pretty simple, right? So what it does is it sees a massive investment in nuclear arms, right? Why? Because nukes are really, really effective, right? I would think that, in the world we're living in today, right, if you were a nation that had, 25 nuclear weapons and you wanted to fundamentally change the way the world was, if you just drop those 25 nukes on strategically populated areas, you could change the world as we know it. So anyways, with Eisenhower, basically the New Look Defense is less troops, more nukes. And I like it because it rhymes, so it makes sense in my head. So it increases the defense budget for nuclear weapons proliferation, and it decreases the number of standing troops. Why? Well, as the video explained, there's more bang for the buck when it comes to nuclear weapons versus soldiers. So that's number 26. So it creates more nuclear weapons and it cuts the size of the standing military. Now, number 27 asks about the policy of massive retaliation. Pretty simple idea. So by this point, America had thousands of nuclear weapons, and basically massive retaliation was basically a threat by Eisenhower that if the Soviet Union messes with any ally of the United States in Western Europe, if they try to expand into those areas, the United States has 3,000 missiles ready to launch against the Soviet Union, right? Just hit that red button, and what would happen would be, those missiles would strike in very strategic areas around the Soviet Union and basically obliterate it. Could you imagine a nation being attacked by 3,000 nuclear weapons? So it would basically destroy the Soviet Union, right? In the video, it talks about how every major urban and industrial center in the Soviet Union would be vaporized. And it was estimated that this policy of massive retaliation would kill about 285 million people. So that's about what? 8 Canada's worth of people, right? Which is a pretty incredible number. Thankfully, it never came to that. But this is where we see on that roller coaster of tensions going up. Now, because the Soviets knew that they were being outgunned here or outnuked, have you, at this point. In 1956, they came up with a policy known as peaceful coexistence. So because Khrushchev knew that the Soviet Union was no match for the American rocket weapons, peaceful coexistence became the order of the day. And basically what this was the Kremlin, right, the Soviet government, looking to extend sort of an olive branch, right, a sign of peace towards the United States of America. So, I mean, during their annual May Day parade, right, May 1st, they had, parades about peaceful coexistence and how the Soviet system and the American system can get along, right? And not sort of this constant tension between the two nations. And unfortunately, number 29, it all comes to an end on the 1st of May, 1960. So about 4 years into peaceful coexistence, unfortunately, what happens is an American U-2 spy plane powered by, his name is Francis Gary Powers, gets shot down over the Soviet Union. And the Soviets knew that the spy plane missions were going on. They just were never able to actually have proof. But on the 1st of May, 1960, they actually shot one down. Now, just so you understand, these spy planes, they fly at about 75,000 feet. A typical commercial airliner flies at about 30 to 35,000 feet. So we're talking about this plane being up sort of on the edge of space, right? And it gets shot down. So these planes were taking pictures of Soviet military installations, right? Like, this is espionage. And now that Khrushchev had proof of it, he made this into a diplomatic incident. And this idea of peaceful coexistence comes literally crashing to the ground when the U-2 spy plane comes crashing to the ground. And I mean, the Soviets had the wreckage and they had the pilot. Gary Powers ejects from the plane successfully. And then, of course, he lands in the Soviet Union. And he was now in Soviet jail. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Bridge of Spies, which came out a couple years ago. It was about the prisoner exchange that happened to get Gary Powers back from the Soviets. But anyways, if you're bored and you want to check out a cool Cold War movie, then I recommend the movie called Bridge of Spies, starring our friend Tom Hanks, America's dad. All right, that is chapter 5. We continue on. We're going to enter into a much more tense period of the Cold War coming up here in the 1960s, and it only gets better. Peace, guys.